Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Circle the World podcast, where we discuss Joe Abercrombie's First Law series. I am one of your hosts, Lord Chamberlain Jeffrey, and here are my co-hosts,
Archlector George,
and Harrison, the Adeptus Historical.
We begin our coverage of Red Country, Joe's third standalone and the next First Law entry. And we start off by covering Some Kind of Coward. So let's get started. As usual, gotta thank you all. Gotta thank you all. Gotta
Thank you.
Well, thank you all for your continued support. We're back in action on a regular basis after our vacation. And we are chilling. We will talk about a nice little surprise that you'll be receiving on the same day that this episode releases, right? And then what else do we got to talk about in terms of the community? What's going on, fellas? How you doing?
The Devils, gentlemen.
Yeah, the Devils is released in the UK. I'm halfway through. It's very good. I won't say anything about it, but it's possibly one of Joe's funniest books ever. It's very, very, very funny.
Excellent.
Love to hear that.
I am audio booking that bitch, so I am waiting, and then I might also wait, to be honest, because of my life and thing. I may also just end up reading it once I get after I get the hard copy from the book signing here next weekend from this time. So, but by the time this episode releases, I'm sure many of you will have read it all the way through, like the crazy fanatics you are. So, let us know what you think of it, and we'll probably hear. Maybe at the end of this book or something, maybe halfway through, we'll do like an episode about it or something. I'm sure.
Yeah, something like that. My book signing is 2 days from now, Tuesday. So yeah, by the time this episode releases, I'll have already been to New York and everything.
Yeah.
Oh shit! Yeah, you'll go next week, aren't you?
I'm going 2 days.
Oh, excellent! That's exciting.
Yeah, man.
So hopefully we'll see a picture of that. You get like a selfie with Joe in the background when you
or maybe I turn like full like egotistical like maniac and just take over the book signing. We'll see what happens.
Perfect.
See what happens. Oh yeah, but yeah, folks, just continue to sign up for our podcast if you haven't already. Sign up for our YouTube page. We actually, I'm going to take the week. Well, by this time this episode releases, I'll have hopefully taken some days out of the week to upload some more episodes because why not? And I don't know. George, you got anything else you want to add here?
We also, the third, or I think it might be the fourth theory video that we've done. It's a video that I recorded with Trey, who was one of our guests last year. We actually recorded a video about his theory that Baez is actually the true mastermind of the Great Change through some convoluted means. And Jeff, I'm very happy that you managed to cut that down from, was it 5 hours to around an hour and 47 minutes? It was 6 hours, was it? Okay. Yeah, so most of that was pure waffle, which is brilliant. But yeah, that will be going up today as well. So if you're listening to this, it's up on the YouTube channel. So go and give that a listen as well. Some extra bonus content for you.
Yeah, enjoy.
10 months in the making. It better be fucking spectacular. That's funny.
It holds as much water as the rest of my theories, so that's how it goes,
Yeah, it's a pretty good half glass.
But this one isn't your theory necessarily.
It's
right?
not my theory at all. It's Trey's absolutely, and I was more of an interviewer in that dynamic. So.
I don't know, man. By the end of the video, you pretty much sounded like a full-on convert.
He convinced me over the course of 3 or 4 days.
Jesus.
Going clear. Yeah, so go check it out. We got that video coming out. I have some ideas in the works too as well, and I know Harrison's got some things too. So, yeah, go ahead and join us.
All I have to do is be able to create time.
You just break the space-time continuum, just expand the amount of time.
Yes, the only way.
I hear you. And don't forget to join us on our social media platforms. You know how to find us. Get on it. But we still want to thank you, and we appreciate you. and we'll be the memeing every chapter. We'll be starting when, boys? Do you know, George?
Well, I've spoken with Spaceman about it. He's obviously a very busy man as well at the moment, but that will be going up, the announcement and the list, at some point, probably in the next week or two. So just keep an eye out for that and just snap up as many of those chapters as you can, and make sure you fulfill that when the date rolls around, which is something that's not always easy to do, as I learned a couple of times when he had to message me and say, you need to upload that meme today, and I'm like, oh shit. So yeah, just if you want to participate in that, it's always a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be just like last time, like George was saying. Not like last time, sorry, but like usual, where you have to sign up. So don't forget that. It isn't a free for all, but it's gonna be a great time. So we'll move on to our first chapter read through, which is Some Kind of Coward. Now, folks, if you've been following this podcast for any amount of time, you already know I am a big Red Country fan. I will slob its knob any day of the week. Okay? And so, pretty excited. Hope you're excited to join this little journey with us because it's going to get fun. So, we start off with this chapter from the perspective of a new POV main character. The main character, I would say. Shy South. Now, Shy is we would say a spunky girl in her 20s, right? But
A
spunky don't.
whippersnapper.
Oh yeah, but doesn't really cover it because as we read this chapter, you find out that she has a bit of a bloody past, a bit of a robbing, a thieving, a stabbing, and she's pretty. Now what she's doing is she's focusing on just making things better for her two siblings, Ro and Pitt, younger little siblings. Her stepdaddy, a man named Lamb, who tends to be some kind of coward apparently, and Gully, who's like a farmhand, and just taking care of them because ever since their mother died, which I gather from this might have been like a year or a couple of years ago. That's the idea, right? Right, boys? Right?
Yeah.
Seems about right.
I also like how immediately Joe kind of sets up the world that we're going to be in for this book, which is obviously a little bit different from the other first four books because it's a western. Immediately,
it's a
first
western.
line is a gold rush.
Yeah,
It's a gold rush.
Go! He says go!
And this town, this square deal, is obviously some kind of boom town. People are going on their way to the west to find gold, just like in the real life.
I want to point out that it's between Square Deal and yet another town later on that we'll see in this book, but really reminds me of Deadwood. That's all I'll say. That's all I'll say. I know I talk about Deadwood a lot. I'm going to talk about it even more
Okay,
in this fucking book. But Square Deal reminds me a lot about that. And it's all going into one direction, which is like, what George was saying, the gold rush. Harrison, do you have anything you want to say about what we talked about so far?
No. I mean, a lot of this chapter is going to be introductory, which you've already done. So we're just going to cruise through, man.
Yeah. So basically, Shy and her stepdaddy Lamb, they're in the town of Square Deal. And
Can you stop saying stepdaddy? Her stepdaddy, her daddy, her big old daddy. Stop it, Jeffrey. Get some help.
Big old long slong daddy.
Anyways.
Sorry. Good God. Anyways. So now you fucked me up. I hope you're proud of yourself. You fucked me up. So introducing those main characters, getting them out of the way. Basically, the purpose is that they're in this town of Square Deal, right? To sell grain. They have a bunch of bags of grain in their cart, and so that's the idea, right? And Lamb is off to negotiate terms, while Shy hangs back and hangs out with this guy named Whist, who's the one that said that first line that George was talking about. Gold makes men mad.
And in great Joe Abercrombie fashion, this guy just has a name that describes his personality. He's wistful. That's it.
Very true. Yeah,
It's beautiful.
It is.
You always know when Joe's throwaway characters are because their name is exactly what they do, and you never see them again.
That's good. And so, Shy and Whist are just chilling, talking, noticing all the people that are coming in and out of the town, right? That are rushing to go buy mining materials, pickaxes, things like that, sifters, and they comment about how like last year you couldn't have counted 2 people that you didn't know, and now because with the news of like this gold rush that came out from the west in the mountains, and then he asked if she's tempted to join them. She's like, nah, not really, because that's goofy. It's all rumors. It's all you don't know for sure that you're gonna strike it rich, right? She's rather just
Mm-hmm.
stick at the farm and make a living out of something.
Mhm.
Although she does kind of have like a little bit of a pull to kind of go like, fuck it, let me just go out west, but. And I think we should talk about a little bit real quick. So Square Deal, and we talked about the Western. This is legitimately in the west of the first law, right?
Mhm.
So
Yes.
as we all know, fans, that we have the Union, which is in Midderland, Adjoa, um, Angland, and Westport, and Starkland. Starkland's a little bit to the west, right? Then we have the north. Then we have Styria, the Empire of Gurkul, and we have what are the other ones?
The old empire in the southwest, which is obviously in the first trilogy.
Right. There. Well, yeah, west, southwest, and I feel like. Well, yeah, you're right, southwest, and then I feel like, then we have the unclaimed lands. Let's call it that, right? The near
Mhm.
country
Yeah.
and the far country, as they call it here.
And it's
Uh,
sort of important to remember that Joe never planned all of this. At the beginning, it was just the old empire, and then when it got to this book, it was actually no, there's this bit on top as well called the Far Country that
Yeah.
that I haven't mentioned yet, so it didn't
right,
exist.
right.
To be fair to Joe as well, though, he does do a good job at basically being like, yeah, the old Empire territory that is like ravaged and all that. This used to be that as well. All this area used to be old Empire. Also, it just has been less I used,
Like this.
populated, like
Yeah.
most of the Empire. This just has some other stuff going on now. So
Right. Right. It wasn't like you said populated. It wasn't maintained during the time of upheaval, right? And
right.
so it just fell into like we could say desolation. They talked about Joe mentions a character called the Ghost in this chapter, and basically what I mean, can we talk about him just yet or?
I mean, we can talk about the ghosts in that they're sort of like a Native American sort of analog.
Yeah, yeah, they're like a stand-in, but they're like red hairs. They're
They're all
gingers.
very pale and redheaded,
Yeah.
which is a great
So
turnaround.
imagine basically
They're all
the
Irish.
Irish.
Yeah.
The Irish. So if the Irish aren't oppressed in real life, they're oppressed in literature. Isn't that crazy? Wow. Anyway, so you guys have it rough. Jeez, I'll tell you that right now.
We all know that Joe would be 100% okay whenever Pharaoh gets recast as a redhead.
Oh my god.
Oh my dude.
Oh my god.
He's
So
like, I gotta make up for it.
uh, so we have a ghost. So we'll see the ghost when we go into the trading post. Now, in the process of Shy and Wisp talking, Lamb comes back. And Lamb is, she describes him as a shag of gray hair showing above the heads around him for all his stoop at even in sorrier set to his heavy shoulders than usual, right? So this guy, Lamb, is a big guy, and gray hair. So we think he's in his 40s, 50s, gray hair, you know, and then
Yeah.
she asked him, "Oh, what did you get?" Obviously, I'm assuming about for the grain, and he winced like he knew what was coming. 27, and he said it as Joe describes in a manner of what he's really asking is, "How bad did I fuck up?" And she goes, "Oh, you are some kind of bloody coward, Lamb." And she says, "I didn't spend 2 days dragging this up here to give it away." So now we have a, a reference of time, right? We have it took them 2 days to get from their farm to Square Deal.
To clarify for the audience as well, the time frame for when Red Country takes place, because it kind of seems confusing. based on certain characters' ages and when they talk about it. But we do know for sure that Red Country does take place 18 years after the end of Last Argument of Kings, which is about 15 years after Bastard Cold, 10 years after the Heroes, and 12 years before the start of Age of Madness. No, we've been over this 1,000 times, Jeffrey. No questions.
Harrison's right.
Now, that being said, we believe that Lamb has probably been Shy's stepdad for roughly 10 years-ish. It's really hard to say because their siblings, Ro and Pitt, Shy's siblings, Ro and Pitt, are seemingly like 8 and 12 years old-ish. So it's kind of hard to like say, and they both have only really known Lamb as dad. So, anyways, it's the timeline isn't concrete in terms of the ages, but we do know it takes place 18 years after. So that's just for everyone's context.
And that does help put things into perspective once certain information comes to light. The more we read this book, right? And so with that time reference of like, oh yeah, it took 2 days to get from the farm to Square Deal and everything. Shy, kind of basically rolls up her sleeves and goes, well, looks like I gotta negotiate this shit myself. And she said, and so she goes up to the trading post, and it's a bunch of different people. I mean, this is the true melting pot, right? And then we walk past a frowning ghost, which is red hair, all bound up with twigs, leaves still on, and everything. So interesting. That's what we were talking about before. And she calls out for the what would you call it? The manager, the owner of the trading post. His name is Clay, and she says his name real loud so that everyone can kind of hear. And then she goes, "Yeah, you got a whole town full of saps to swindle." And then everyone kind of like turns and looks like, "What?" And now Clay goes, motherfucker, she's about to fuck up my business." And then he goes, "Well, no one's swindling anyone." And she goes, "Yeah, not while I've got an eye on business." And Clay goes, "But me and your daddy agreed on 27." And Shy goes, "Look, he ain't my real daddy. He's just my stepdaddy." And that nothing's been agreed to until she's agreed to it. And Clay like gives Lamb a look, and basically here's the description. Clay cocked an eyebrow at Lamb, and the Northman looked straight to the ground. So we know he's a Northman, and he's a big man, and he's shifting sideways. For all his bulk, he's a weak eye. He just stares down at the ground. He could be a loving man, a hard worker, and a fair stand-in for a father to Ro and Pitt and Shy too. A good man, a good enough man, but by the dead, he was some kind of coward. Which is a lot of good information to have about Lamb. It's nice. It's interesting. So basically, her and Clay, they get into it, right? They start haggling over prices. At first she says 38. He's like, "Bitch, you tripping." And then finally they basically come to an agreement of 33. But what is it? Also like with some throwing in some feed
shovels.
and shovels, right? Shovels and feed, right. And then I like how they do this thing, which again is pretty prevalent in Western literature, films and books and stuff. Is once they come to an agreement, they spit in their hand and they shake, right?
The old
shit. And that is binding, all right? That is, you do not break that shit. So.
But I just love the fact that Clay, because obviously knew that Shy was there and still swindled Lamb down to 27 anyway, even though he knows he's probably going to storm in any second. It's like a well-worn routine with these two.
Yeah,
I think it's very good.
They definitely have this dynamic where they've been, they come into town, they make these bargains, they make these deals, and they do it, What did they say? I think they talk about it. They do it a couple times. They don't do it super often, but it's enough. They've been doing it year after year.
It's like somebody makes a predictable joke about one thing that prompts a predictable joke about from Lamb, and then prompts a predictable joke from like Shy, right?
They have a routine. It's good to have a routine,
Yeah, no, you're right. And so as they agreed and they walk off, Shy goes, "It wasn't that hard now, was it?" to Lamb, and he goes, "I think I would have settled for the 27." And she goes, "Yeah, it's because you're some kind of coward." And then she
Some
goes,
kind of bloody coward.
"Yeah, bloody coward." And then she says, "Better to do it than live with the fear of it. Ain't that what you always used to tell me?"
Hmm.
What a weird
I
coincidence.
What a weird,
It's weird,
strange coincidence. This is
but
really
I think
scarred, man.
I
but you
think
know what? Even the
I think
dog
I
man
just
says it, so maybe he knew Logan or something. Who
uh
knows?
yeah, right. Yeah. I'm sorry. I think I got an erection, but anyway. And I like how in response to that, Lamb is like, "Time's shown me the downside of that advice," but he muttered it. But Shy's too busy really to congratulate. She's feeling good because 33 is a good price. She's working over the numbers. She's able to get some stuff. Some books for Row, fixing the roof of the house, all this stuff. And now it's time to get these shacks. And now it's time to get these sacks moved over to where Clay's surplus is, a supply shop is, right? Whatever. And so Shy notes that for all his cowardice, Lamb's a big, he's a strong guy, right? He's strong like bull. And so, he doesn't even like hesitate when she puts like four sacks on his shoulders. And he's walking back and forth, just dropping them, and not, not even breaking a sweat. Our boy's strong, right? And then, as they start talking a little bit about like what she was like when she was a kid, because he asked her if she needs a rest, and she jokes like, "I need a rest from your bitching, your mouth." And he goes, "Well, I can move some of those sacks around and make a little cot for you. There might be a blanket in the back. I could sing you to sleep like I did when you were young." And then she goes, "I'm still young." And he goes, "Ish." Ooh, snap. Cunt. And then and Lamb says that he
That's really
sometimes
sweet, by the way.
yeah,
My
it
God.
is. It is. And he says that sometimes he still thinks about the little girl smiling up at him, and he wonders where did him and her mother go wrong. And she says she died and you're useless. I was like, "Oh Jesus."
Damn.
Yeah. So he goes, maybe that's it. And he with the sacks that he has on his shoulders, he turns and he almost barges into another Northman, just as big as Lamb and meaner looking. And the guy kind of started like growling some curse, but then stopped suddenly. And Lamb kept walking, head down, without looking back. And the Northman that Northman looked up at Shy, and Shy goes, "What?" And he frowns after Lamb, and then he walked off, scratching at his beard, which is interesting. Interesting. And then, and then, so they finally get the last sack over to Clay. She starts counting out the money, and then she goes, I guess she's gonna start counting out the money because she wants to just make sure. And while she's counting out the money, Lamb and Clay start talking about news in the area. News in the area turns out to be that, apparently Glamour Golden won another fight in the pit up near Grier. They say he's
Hey,
the
we know who that
toughest.
is.
Yeah, we know who he is. We saw him in the Heroes. They say he's the toughest bastard in the near country, and there's some tough bastards about. Take a fool to bet against him now, whatever the odds. Take a fool to fight him. And Lamb goes, "No doubt." And so they talk about like how he once beat a guy so hard that his guts came out of his ass, which is funny. And so that's interesting about Glamour Golden. Last we knew of him, right? We knew that Calder had declared that Glamour had quote unquote poisoned Carl Ricci. Wink, wink. So it
Hmm.
seems like Glamour had made a run for it out of the north. That's the idea, right?
Well, we all
Yeah.
know that Calder has killed Ricci and
Oh, of
blamed it
course,
on the
of course,
Golden.
we know that. We know that. But
I will say too, interestingly, right? Like Glamour Golden's probably been out here for a couple of years now, right? Because traveling takes time and all that. But also, like it's been 10 years, so that little
oh
fiasco
right,
up in the north took a while. I mean, even if you say a year passed between the end of the Heroes and whenever Krog goes to join up with them, that's still, Glamour Golden must have been fighting and running and doing crazy shit for several years at least.
right? Because you said what's the time frame again between the Heroes and Red Country? We said it's 3
10,
years.
10 years.
It's 10 years. 10 years.
Oh, I don't know why I thought you said the Heroes is 15 years after Last Argument King. Sorry. Um. Wow. Okay. Yeah. 10 years. Ooh. It's gotta been quite some journey for Glamour.
Yeah, shit.
Well, I guess if we see him, if crazy to think we might see him. If we do, I imagine he's probably still the same vainglorious shit, right? Possibly, most likely, yes. Anywho, then they talk. Clay talks about a battle up near Rostad. Do
Which
we know where
know
Rostad is?
is in the Union. It's been mentioned a couple of times, especially
I
when it
feel like
comes
it has.
to divisions of levies. It's always I think the Rostad Regiment is
Rostad
mentioned
Regiment.
a couple of times.
Right. The Rostad Regiment. Yeah. You're
Which,
right.
by the way, on that note too, like Rostad is, by the way, is the capital, I believe, of Starkland.
Is it?
Yeah. Also, Starkland. Also, if you notice too, I like to think that this is a contributor. Joe never mentions it directly, but it's always the Starkland regiments and levies that get completely fucked over in the wars. Both the wars in the north, they're almost completely wiped out. And that I think has a subtle influence. Not only were they already rebellious, but now they're having to, they keep losing all these men in pointless wars. I guarantee you that is a heavy contributor to their issues with the Union. So, but Joe never directly says that. It just seems pretty. It's very much the Joe way of having two entire regiments of Starkland levies get wiped off the face of the planet in two different books, and then right after those books, they're like, "Man, the Starkland rebellions are having some problem. I mean, I don't know why they're rebelling."
Very well put. Yeah.
That's good, Harrison. No, you're right about that. And so they talk about this battle, and so apparently it's there's a rebellion like Harrison talked about, and this time he heard that they got beat again bad this time, and that they're all on the run now, and those that that the Inquisition did not get a hold on. So they start talking about that. So it's like, okay, so it might be that they'll make a stand up at Mokova, but they won't be standing long. And so basically, Clay says that the war is all but over, if you could call it a war. And there's plenty of people that are off their land or burnt out or lost what they had. And so now passes are opened up, ships are coming through, and lots of people are seeing that they have their fortune out west. The gold rush.
Mm-hmm.
And what they're seeing here right now, with all the people they're seeing here now, is just the first trickle. Clay says that there's a flood coming. And I forget if it was like at this part, maybe even earlier during the conversation with Wisp, but they talk about where they see all kinds of people. You see the Ruffians, you see Northmen, you see people from the Union that even look like they have a comfortable life, and they're like, "Fuck it, we're taking a risk and we're going out west." And which is a very like accurate analog to like what was like back then too here in America,
Yeah.
where you had people that were well-to-do, well-off. Like if you watch Deadwood, Brom Garrett is the perfect example. Well, I'll just go out west because I am useless, even though I'm rich, and I will find my own destiny. Blah, blah, blah. And then you get your face smashed in. Anyway, so yeah, it's gonna be a huge, huge influx of people, and this is just the start of it. And Lamb says that well, it's not like it's all gold out in the mountains. Some will find some gold, and some will come back the other way. They'll just go back home. And Clay says, yeah, but also some will put down roots, and the Union's going to be coming. Afterwards. However much the Union gets, they always want more. And with what that find out west, they'll smell money. So that means there was an actual find. There was a gold find somewhere that
Yes.
that was of substantial note. Then they start talking about how the old vicious bastard Sarmus is sitting on the border and rattling his sword for the Empire. Now, Sarmus is Zacharys's dude,
Yes.
right?
Yes, and it's been, Sarmus has been in quote unquote power for about 20 years now, so.
Just about, right? Because at that time when we didn't see Sarmus, but we knew of him, was when there was that three-way civil war with the old empire. I forget the other two generals' names or whatever, but apparently Sarmus has it down. He's consolidated the old empire. And honestly, not too, seems like did a decent job of it, right? If we'll see in a couple, in a chapter, as to why the union's like, well, let's not mess with them just yet. um, and apparently Clay is now speaking a little softer. And he goes, I hear that there's already union agents in Hormring talking annexation. He's like, oh, I don't know where Hormring is. We look at the map. It's not that far. Right. So anyway, Clay starts talking about like how they'll have a coin in one hand, talking about buying people out, but they'll also have a blade in another hand, and that everyone should start thinking about like how we'll play it if they come to a square deal. That we should stand together. The people that have been here for a while. And Shy is, I'm not interested in politics, but Clay goes, most aren't until politics takes an interest in us all the same. And the union will be coming, and they'll bring law with them, and taxes follow law, quickly. And so,
And this is where we get the little flash of Shy's past, where Clay says, "Just a fancy way, we had taxes, or just a fancy way to rob someone." And Shy says that none of the people that she'd robbed had been looked too delighted about it. So
being robbed,
a bit of a dark past there.
Right, because he says he would rather be robbed at point blank, like knife range,
The good old fashioned way.
Yeah.
Man to man.
And you're like, I don't know. Everyone I robbed didn't seem too happy. Yeah, I don't know, man. I can tell you haven't been robbed.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, so then she, with the money that she finally counted out, she goes and buys some stuff, some things that they need, and she almost gets out of.
Oh, bless you.
I hate being sick. I'm sorry, boys.
Good.
This is the part where they talked about the predictable joke. Don't really need to get into that. But she's buying a bunch of stuff for what they need. Not too much because she still needs to have money left over for like repairing the roof and everything. And then she almost buys like a new shirt for Pitt, but Lamb pats her arm with his gloved hand. And to just calm her down, and so she buys some needles instead and thread, so she can make him a shirt from one of Lamb's old ones, and she could probably really make him like 5 out of, because Lamb's a big dude, right? And plus the boy's that skinny. And it's funny, we should talk about like the technological advancements here a little bit, because she says that these needles are a new kind, stamped out of a machine in Adua, hundreds at a press.
Yeah,
Which is pretty
I think
cool.
at this point we're seeing the start of what will eventually turn up later in the series. I'm going to talk about this later when Swarbrick says something as well. So
yeah,
but
right.
yeah,
All right. Yeah, well,
they're actually doing proper manufacturing now.
You're right about that. And we could tell that she might have like a bit of a drinking problem, because like earlier Wiz had offered her a swallow, like have some of my bottle of whiskey or whatever, and she just takes a sip, not a whole like swallow. And then as she's about to leave the store, she sees like a bunch of like liquor bottles, and she starts like kind of licking her lips a little bit. She's like, no, I can't. So, and then she leaves. And I guess like you said, Harrison, there's like this routine, or George, you said it maybe. Whereas as soon as she's leaving, he out loud, he's like, never come to the store again, you mad bitch. You've damn near ruined me. And then she goes, next season? He goes, yeah, see you then. So it's funny. So then they get on the cart with the oxen, and they're about to, leave. She goes to reach for the reins as she's like paying attention to Clay, and she notices that she almost like grabs the beard of that Northman that stopped by earlier. He's standing right by the wagon, and his face is all scrunched up, like he's trying to like remember something. And he has a scar through one eye. I would love to know if like this is a Northman we've met in passing at the very least at some point. It would be really
There is only one possibility with the scar through the eye, but it would have been more distinguishable, and that would be like White Eye Hansler or something. But that doesn't make any sense. So
true.
He would have been
And
older, white hair.
Yeah. So Shy, look, the guy's looking up, and so Shy's like, she has a pleasant face about her. She's keeping a pleasant smile, but like one hand's kind of reaching behind her back to grab her knife, like, let's get ready. And then I like how she says this to herself, but I feel like this is like an amalgamation or like a paraphrasing of what Lamb says, growing up. She says to herself, "Better to have steel to hand and find no trouble than find yourself in no trouble with no steel to hand." I feel like Lamb said something like this, but it's also the same thing as like, condoms. Better to have them and not need them than need them and not have them, kind of thing.
You just like condoms, Jeff.
Just like condoms. Anyway, so then the Northman says something in Northern, and Lamb doesn't even, look at him, right? He just hunches a little lower, and the Northman says something again, and then Lamb just grunts something back, and then snaps the reins, and the wagon rolls off. And so, Shy like looks over her shoulder, and she, the Northman's still standing there, just frowning after them. She's kind of confused, and she asks Lamb like, "What did he want?" And he says, "Nothing." Shy basically essentially calls him a coward again. You're such a bloody coward because he's not answering why what that was about. He didn't even look the Northman in the face. And then when she says that, he gives her a sideways look, and then he looks away and he says, "There's worse a man can be." Interesting.
I like he sees some shit. Not gonna lie, he's all scarred up, Probably some veteran of the Northern War. I think she even says that, right? She's like,
Yeah, she
I think
said
he's probably some veteran, right?
she says that a little bit, but she says that he has some scars on his face and everything. Yeah.
But he's also grown a beard to cover most of that. So
Yeah, true.
let's go.
True. So, they're now some time, a little bit of a break. There's some time, and they crest the rise to go to the farm, and they're laughing. When they leave town, Lamb is at his best. He usually perks up. So he's not good in a crowd, obviously, and they're just cracking up. Just laughing. And she's just like so like it's just nice to be on your way home, and you're gonna be with your family, and things are kind of looking up. And then they saw the farm, and the laughter died right in their throats. She couldn't breathe, speak, think. All her veins flushed with ice water, which I really like. Then she's down from the wagon and running, and Lamb, calls her to, come back, but they're obviously going towards the farm. Through the stubble of the field they harvested not a week before, over the trampled down fence and the chicken feathers crushed into the mud, and she had made it into the yard, what had been the yard, and stood helpless. Their house was all dead charred timbers and rubbish, and nothing left standing but the tottering chimney stack. No smoke. The rain must have put out the fires a day or two before. But everything was burned out. So she goes around the back of the barn. Gully was hanged from the big tree out back.
Oh.
They hanged him over her mother's grave and kicked down the headstone. Dicks. He was shot through with arrows. Might have been a dozen, might have been more. Dicks. And so now she's like, it's that like real gut punch. She can't even breathe. She's bent over double. She's really devastated over, what she's seeing here. And she's looking at Gully's corpse, and she's just thinking back to the time where, like, he's such a harmless guy, right? And she apparently, as they were leaving her and Lamb, he had called to her and said, "Don't worry, because I looked to the children," and that Shy laughed at him. Shy laughed at him and said that she didn't need to worry because the children will be looking after Gully.
No.
It's sad. It is super sad. I mean, and obviously, what a hell of a way to start the chapter. Start the book.
It does. It locks you in, for the book start, because at first you're kind of thinking like, okay, here we are. I would say out of like a lot of the book beginnings, right? Like Joe does a good job at starting most of his books. I would say his weakest starts are his trilogy starts, but his strongest starts are the standalones.
Mm-hmm.
The heroes less so actually, but like Best of Cold starts off really strong at the them her getting thrown down the cliffside, and this starts off really hardcore with them coming back to see their farm burned out. And they're like, all right, well, I guess I know what we're doing in this book.
Yeah, and it's obviously it's a travesty of a sight, that they're looking at, and as she's bent over double, she Lamb comes running up, and he says, "Where are the children?" And so then they look through the house, the barn, slow and steady. They're going through all the timbers and everything. Just and they were Shy is so sure she's gonna dig up Pit and Rose bones, right? But she didn't. But they were in the house. They were in the barn. They're not in the yard. And they're looking through everything, and then they kind of come to the realization that the children were stolen. They're because they're vanished. They're not there. There's no sign of them.
Damn.
Right. So now Lamb just kind of nods when it comes to that realization, and she's kind of like just when you're in that kind of state of panic, trauma, you're kind of just talking. She's asking out loud why. Lamb says, I don't know. She goes, okay, well, we got to get after them. Lamb says, and so she's like looking around at the tracks, because I guess they made enough of a mess. She probably has some experience tracking, right? If she has like some kind of like past other life out in the West, right, back in the day.
Yes.
Talks about how she's guessing at least 20 men, but might have been 40 horses, because they might have left the spare mounts over here, maybe to carry the children. Not sure where to carry them. So she's thinking like, okay, so they came in from the west and they left going south, left in a hurry. So they're gonna bury Gully. They buried Gully pretty quickly next to Shy's mom, and they set her headstone upright as well. And then, Shy goes, well, should we say something? Lamb goes, I got nothing to say. And he just gets back on the wagon seat, and he's like ready to go, because they only got like an hour of light left.
Yep.
But Shy goes, fuck that. We're not taking that car. She can run faster than the oxen. And Lamb goes, not much. You can't run for longer, though. And not with gear. And we're going to do no good rushing at this. They've got, 2 to 3 days start on us. And they'll be riding hard. 20 men. We have to be realistic, Shy. And she whispers at him like, realistic, like she can't really believe it. And he goes, if we chase after on foot and don't starve or get washed away in a storm, and if we catch him, what? We're not even armed, not with more than your knife. So no, we'll follow on as fast as Scale and Calder can take us. Nodding at the oxen. And what are oxen? Dummies. See if we can pair a couple off the herd and work out what they're about. And then she goes, what? Work out what they're about? And she starts screaming. She goes, what happens to Roe and Pitt while we're fucking following on? And then he says, we'll follow. Because and like that's it. We'll follow. Maybe we could talk this out. Buy him back. She goes, buy him back? They burn out your farm. They hang your friend. They steal your children. And you want to pay them for the privilege? And she says it this time, you're such a fucking coward. And he didn't look at her, and he goes, sometimes a coward's what you need. And his voice turns rough. No shed blood's going to unburn this farm now, nor unhang Gully either. That's done. Best we can do is get back the little ones any way we can. Get them back safe. Then we'll see. And
it starts to twitch a little bit when he says that.
It starts to twitch. And then she kind of like, she sits next to Lamb, but she looks back at it and she goes like, why do they have to burn it all? And Lamb says, some men just like to burn. Shy looks at him, and in her eyes it's thought like, it's very strange how he could be so calm right now. A man who hadn't had the guts to argue over prices, thinks, but he's like thinking death and kidnap through clearly, being realistic about the end of all they've worked for. And she asked him, she says, how can you sit so level, like you knew it was coming? And he didn't look at her, but he says, it's always coming. Oh, that's the end of that chapter, boys.
Guys, I'm going to go on a limb here. I'm pretty sure, just to guess, Lamb, maybe Logan.
Oh,
no.
Really?
Logan's dead.
Yeah, he fell out of a... He jumped into that water down there, yeah, and he, from that height, he should not have been able to survive. Logan doesn't survive. Like he obviously, he's just a human. He should have survived that fall.
Right. It's not like he's done it before.
At the start of the best blade, it's oh my god, it was all set up. Joe, you dirty dog.
Oh, hold on.
Oh my god, all that stuff on the heroes was a red herring. He was like teasing us.
Oh, interesting.
It would explain why his all his wording, right? He's all like, yeah, we gotta go get him no matter what it takes. Yeah, I mean, this is inevitable. It's all inevitable. Some people just like to burn, like me.
Well, we don't have any confirmation just yet, but it is odd.
I mean, it's a lot of coincidences. That's what it's saying.
Scale and Calder, he named them the oxen that. The oxen, because they're like asses, like they're just
yeah. And he acted like he knew Glamour Golden.
Yep.
Better do it than live with the fear of it.
And there's the notch out of his ear is mentioned, which is something that's mentioned quite a lot when it comes to Logan.
Well, him and Dow both have notches in their ears.
Gotta be realistic.
He says that.
Actually, Dow's missing a whole ear, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
you're right. I think only Logan has a notch in his ear. You're right.
Yeah.
Well, boys, how do you rate that chapter?
I'm gonna straight away. I'm gonna go for an 8 for this one. I think it's a really, really good opening.
Mm-hmm.
I think the world building and between Shy and Clay is sort of just to pull the rug out from under you. You know what I mean?
And Whist.
And Whist as well. They're getting comfortable that this is everything's okay and we've made a bit of money and we're gonna go back to the farm and we're gonna build a better life and it's dead. It's gone. Fuck you. I think it's perfect.
It is. It's good.
Yeah. I mean, listen. Like I said, I'm slobbing the knob of this book, so I'm giving it an 8 too. Fuck it. Love this opening chapter. As George said, it established the world pretty easily. Well in depth early on. We get the sense, it's like it really jumps out at you like this is a Western, right? Like you're immediately immersed with that. Just with the descriptions, the setting, the place of like, oh, there's a gold rush, and you're seeing people of all walks of life going to this one town as the what would you call it? The waypoint before they continue on their journey to strike it rich. We get Shy, who has a bit of a backstory. Kind of goes into it a little bit, but not really. So it's like, ooh, interesting. And she's trying to be better, and she's trying to take care of her family, especially in light of her mother passing. We get Lamb, who's a coward, but he seems to have a certain past of his own as well. Lamb, and everything that George said. So I'm giving this an 8 out of 9 fingers. Fuck it.
I'm gonna give it an 8 as well. I think that it's like I said a minute ago, it's a really strong opening chapter. There's a lot of subtext and foreshadowing and connectivity with other things without it being blatant. There's plenty of world building, and I think it's a really, really, really good opening chapter. One of his best ones without being like overly bombastic. It's a very like quiet chapter, and I like that. So I also 8 for me.
Nice, love it. We love a trifecta, don't we, boys?
Mm-hmm.
We do.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll move on to our best meme of the week.
So it's a pretty simple one this week. It's from Arya Stark with the fucking stupid woo voice. It makes me laugh every time I see it.
I don't know. I think it's a hilarious name. It's one of my favorites.
It is a really good one. Who I think has been meme of the week before. Although at this point, I think like everybody I mentioned has been meme of the week at some point. All 140 of them. So that you're bound to get repeats in there somewhere. And it's a nice, simple one. It's about the Pope being elected this past week, and of course it's got to be Leo, hasn't it? And this Redditor hopes that his leg's okay.
His leg's okay.
And that is it. It's a nice, simple one.
Yeah, sometimes we like a nice little simple shit posting, right? You know what I mean? We just
a bit of shit posting.
It's great too because like obviously the Arya Stark, right? And then it's like a hand drawn Leo on the picture of the Pope. It's even better for that reason though. I don't know if they consider that, but that's awesome. Yeah, it's now whenever people see the Pope, all the First Law fans can be like, the young lion.
That's so funny.
Oh my god! If Joe only knew when he started writing The Age of Madness how much hatred he'd find for or put out there for the name Leo.
Only a little hatred.
Damn it.
My dad ones have been
You
off
know-
the charts lately, boys.
That was a good one. That was a good
Yeah,
one.
you know that's the trouble with peace. But all right,
all right, Jeff.
I'll see myself out. I'll see myself out.
Oh, so yeah, thank you for that, Armia Stark.
I like the choice of the Pope they made. That's the wisdom of crowds. I'm sorry, take all this out, George. Don't let this in. Please don't leave this in. Please, I beg you. All right. Well, thank you for that, and let's just jump right into our character spot. Now we had a number of people internally. I kind of wanted to do a character spot on Lamb, but we thought. I thought, well, something tells me he's just going to be around for a lot of the book. So, boys, who are we shining a spotlight on instead?
We are adding. We are adding into the great names of the character spot. Clay. He doesn't have a last name as far as I can tell.
Clay.
Clay the merchant. Clay the general store owner.
Interesting. Okay.
He doesn't have a lot going on really. He's just a store owner. But I do like that he does seem like a genuinely just decent guy. He doesn't really seem like a scumbag like a lot of these kinds of characters are.
I don't know.
Not really that bad. I mean, he seems like he's out for himself, but he's also not like an asshole. Not really. Or maybe the other way around, right? He is an asshole, but he's not really just out for himself. He does business. He's I like. He seems like he fits this area of the world in this time period perfectly. He's an exact product of his location and time. And like Joe does with a lot of these characters, like having these side characters that pop up who has a name, who have a little bit more character than you'd think they would, is very integral to the world building and making the world seem consistent. Anyway, this is the kind of people we're going to be encountering from now on.
Exactly. I mean, this could have literally just been, Shy has a conversation with a merchant and they do the haggling and then that's it, and you don't get anything else from it. But the fact that Clay kind of sets up a lot of the plot points to come later in the book. I mean, you got Clark McGolden, you got the Union coming out west, you got and he even mentions it might lead into the next time we see him, which is like, oh, maybe we should all take some kind of stand against the Union, eh?
Yeah. he does, he says like we should come together as a town to kind of figure out what is it that we're going to stand for, like what do we want, because the Union are most likely coming. And it's interesting for a guy that acts as like a swindling trading a trader, right, that he also has that kind of aspect to him.
He's definitely got a good head on his shoulders, sensible guy.
He's definitely got his pulse on the happenings, near of like what's going on in the region, and so he is. He is. I guess we could say he's out, like you said, Harrison. He's out for himself, but also kind of like he seems to have a bit of a not altruistic. What's another word I'm looking for?
A bit more conscientious, maybe.
Yeah, that's a better word for it. Good job.
Yeah, conscientious. Yeah. So I mean. Interesting. I wonder if Clay will have a bigger role to play in this book.
Yeah, I wonder.
Your aloofness in this episode, Jeffrey, is off the charts. I'm proud to be your friend.
You said my aloofness?
Yes, your fucking aloofness.
What do you mean?
There's no idea what he's talking about.
Stop it, Jeffrey.
What?
You're doing it now without even thinking about it.
What? Just tell me. God damn it.
Every single time you're like, I wonder if that's gonna play a bigger role. Oh, I hope we see him again. Every single scene.
Sorry.
No, it's funny. It's funny. It's great.
Oh.
Well, that's it for our character spot. And that'll conclude our episode. So that's our show, everyone. We want to thank you all for listening and supporting this podcast. As you know, this is a passion project for the three of us, and your support really does mean oh so much.
Join us next week as we cover The Easy Way and Just Men.
And make sure you follow us on all of the social media and check out the YouTube page. And we have a website at circleoftheworld.com.
And if you haven't already, please subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast from. And please make sure to rate and review us. Thank you all again for listening.
It's always coming.